this is Tim Gross from PianoGenius.com, and this video is an update, a redo of the video that I did about 12 years ago that's gotten about 17 plus million views on YouTube, talking about the number system and how you can use it to make your life easier, to be able to figure out scales and chords and play your favorite songs in a fraction of the time. Now, since I made that last video, I've played with a bunch of famous singers and world-class musicians, and they all seem to like how I play. And the reason I'm mentioning that is not to brag, but just to let you know I'm not some crackpot making this stuff up. I've been making a living for decades playing keyboards, and what I'm going to show you is how professional musicians in the rock, pop, country, everything world talk to each other. So this is important information for you to know. This is not what you're going to get from your normal piano teacher, okay? So let's get started. And first, we need to talk about how we talk about our fingers. And the way we do this when we're playing piano is that we count our thumbs as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is the pinky finger, okay? Now, secondly, let's take a look at the keyboard. And there are things to notice right away that there are repeating patterns on the keyboard. So we have 2 black notes and then 3 black notes, and then again 2 black notes, 3 black notes. And that's because the keyboard repeats. On a full-size piano, there are 88 notes if you count all the black and white notes. But really, it's just a few notes that just repeat in different parts of the keyboard, okay? And the white notes are named from A to G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So the way you find the A is you look at the 3 black notes and you count up to 1, 2, and then from there you go up to the white note that's right here, and that's an A, okay? And so if you start counting up, you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then once you get to G and go back up, you've gotten to A again. So from there, it just repeats, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. So if you understand these notes, then you understand these notes. So you don't have to feel all overwhelmed about the whole thing. You just have to get familiar with this little set of notes right here, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and if you go back up here, that becomes an 8, and that's called an octave higher, by the way. That's an A, that A is an octave higher, that A is an octave lower. And putting these 8 notes together is called a scale. And that's why in the first video I said if you can count to 8, you're practically a piano genius. Kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also true, because these scales are the basis for music, for Western music. And so if you can count to 8 and go, you are halfway home to being able to understand what it is that you're trying to play on piano. Okay, possibly the most important note on the piano is this note right here, which is C. And the way you find C is you find the 2 black notes and then drop down to the left, and the C is right there. And if you start from the C and count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then go 8, that happens to be a major scale, because in C, playing all white notes gets you a C major scale. All right, and this is an octave higher than that. And so what I'm about to show you is a formula for how you can play any major scale. And once you can do that, you can play any major chord. And major chords and minor chords are the 2 basic building blocks for probably any song that you want to play. Okay, so let's look at this. So this is called a half step, half step, half step, half step. The black notes and the white notes don't matter at all as far as like this is called a half step from this, it's called a half step from this, or a semitone, 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 half step, half step, half step, however you want to call it. It doesn't matter. They're all the same as far as that goes. If you go like this, that's called a whole step. And the reason it's a whole step, I think you can guess, is because it's 2 half steps combined. So that's a whole step, that's a whole step. From here, that's a whole step. It's also called a whole tone, depending on where you live. Whole tone, whole step, because there's a note in between. That's a whole step or a whole tone, because there's a note in between. So the pattern to play any major scale is to just pick a note, and we're just picking C, and you go whole step, but then between 3 and the 4 note, you do a half step. Okay, so whole step, then between the 3 and the 4 you do a half step, and then whole step, and then whole step, and then between the 7 and the 8 note you do a half step again. Okay? So between the 3 and the 4 is a half step, between the 7 and the 8 is a half step. And once you understand that, you can play any major scale, just picking any note and then continuing on. Okay? So let's, for instance, use D. So we're going to play a D major scale. Okay? So we know we go whole step, but then when we get to between the 3 and the 4, we're going to play a half step or a semitone right there. And then we're going to go whole step, and then whole step, and then whole step. And then between the 7 and the 8 note, we're going to do a half step. So that is a D major scale. And it's all just based on playing half steps between the 3 and the 4 and the 7 and the 8. Okay? So once you understand that, you can easily find out how to play major chords, which we'll get to in just a minute. First of all, I'm going to show you the formula to play any minor chord. And as I said, starting on A, that happens to be the minor scale that's all white notes. So it's easiest to look at. So we're going to look at that, okay? So to play any minor scale, you're going to go whole step, and then between 2 and 3, you're going to play a half step. And then you're going to go whole step, and then between 5 and 6, you're going to play a half step. And then you're going to go whole step. So the formula to play any minor scale is to play all whole steps except between the 2 and the 3 and between the 5 and the 6. Okay? So let's play E minor. So this becomes the 1 because we're just playing E, and then we're going to go whole step, and then we're going to go half step between the 2 and the 3, and then we're going to go whole step, and then between the 5 and the 6 is a half step, and then we go whole step. Okay? So we figured that out because it's all whole steps except between the 2 and the 3 and between the 5 and the 6. So now you've got the formula to play any minor scale as well as any major scale. So more good news, once you can do that, you can play any major chord and any minor chord. And those truly are the building blocks for just about any song that you want to play. Pick your favorite song. It's full of major chords and probably minor chords. All right. So what a major and a minor chord is just playing the 1 and the 3 and the 5 of whatever scale you're playing. So C major scale is right here. Playing the 1 and the 3 and the 5 just means 1, 3, 5. Okay. So 1, 3, 5. That's a C major chord. And basically you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you're just leaving out the 2 and the 4. So that's a C major chord. To play a D major chord, you go like that. And you can think through the scale, or you can just start to notice something else, which is that, look at C major again. When you play a C major chord, there are 3 notes between the 1 and the 3, and there are 2 notes in between the 3 and the 5, okay? So to play a D major, we just go, oh, okay, D, and we go, is that right? You go, yep, there's 3 notes in between, so that makes this what's called a major third, and there's 2 notes in between here. More patterns is this, something to notice, is if you can play a C major chord, you can also play an F major chord and a G major chord because they're all white notes. You can put your hands in a claw and go C, and then slide up and go F, and slide up and go G. They're all white notes, okay? The other pattern is that if you can play a D major chord, you can also play an E major chord and an A major chord because they all have a black note in the middle and white notes on the ends, okay? D major, E major, A major. So again, patterns. If you can play one of those chords, you can play all 3 of those chords. Now, minor is exactly the same as major, except the third is lowered a half step. So to play a C minor chord, we're going to take the 3 and we're going to flat it. It's called flatting because you're making it go down. And that's a C minor. And the reason it's minor is because there's 2 notes in between there. It's called a minor third because there's only 2 notes. Think of it as being less. It's minor. And then there's 3 notes up on the top. So the 1 and the 5 stay the same. It's just that the 3 goes down a half step. Okay? So if we were to play a D minor, what we would, there's the 1 and the 5, but the minor would be The minor third would be right here because there's 2 notes in between there and 3 notes here. So this is a minor third because there's only 2 notes in between it. So understanding that, you can go through and do all those different chords. And if you can play a D minor, you can also play an E minor, which is also all white notes, and you can play an A minor, which is all white notes. And if you can play a C minor, which has a black note in the middle, you can also play an F minor, which has a black note in the middle, and also a G minor, which has a black note in the middle. Okay, so that's a real quick way to understand how to play any major chord, any minor chord, any major scale, and any minor scale. So in the next video, I'm going to move on to how to put this into songs, how to use these chords and start putting chords together and play your favorite songs. So let's move on to that.